Welcome, my dear students of class 10 to my history class. Today's class is for a lesson as I started teaching Mahatma Gandhi and the national movement. The points as I mentioned in the board, please look at it. First point, the Lahore session, second Dandi March, third civil disobedience, fourth spread of the movement, fifth first roundtable conference, and sixth Gandhi Arvind Pact. First one, Lahore session. What is Lahore session? My dear students, Lahore session is known as the historical session. Now why? Because in that very session, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru had become the president, and under his presidency it was decided that India and Congress required complete independence, means Purna Swaraj, instead of self-government. Instead of self-government in India under British control, they required complete independence, means Purna Swaraj. That's why under the presidency of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, during midnight beside the river Ravi of Pakistan, India's first three-color flag was hoisted by uttering the lines, "We the Indians," quote unquote, "We the Indians," demanding complete independence instead of self-government. They choose the day 26th January 1930 as the day of independence, as Independence Day, and people of all sections, of all groups, they unanimously joined that very session, and in order to observe the day 26th January 1930 as Independence Day. That's why the Lahore session of the Congress is called the Historic Congress. The people of India, they decided to sacrifice their life for the cause of real freedom, for the cause of complete independence. And next point, Dandi March. What is Dandi March? Mahatma Gandhi, made an expedition from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi. Dandi was a place of Gujarat seashore. Gandhiji left Sabarmati Ashram on foot for Dandi and reached there by crossing 240 miles or 400 kilometers along with 78 followers. Now what was the intention of Gandhi? He went to Dandi. The intention of Gandhiji was to make salt from the sea water. Now why? Because the British government decided to increase salt tax. Salt was an item used by the poor people. They did not want to pay extra tax. The other group of people who had huge earnings, they could pay tax. But the poor people, they must be suffered. That's why in the interest of poor people, Gandhiji decided to make salt from seawater. Because salt was produced from seawater. And what is the salt law? Who made the salt law? The British government made the salt law. And what were the terms of the salt law? Under the terms of the salt law, no Indian or other people could make salt from the sea water except the Britishers. Second, there would be no gathering within that area from where sea water would be available. The British police would be there if anyone else might take that opportunity of making salt from seawater. The British police would obstruct their way of doing it so. That's why, under these terms, no one could make salt from the seawater. But as soon as the British government increased salt and Gandhiji requested them not to increase salt tax, the British did not allow, the British did not, consider the request of Gandhiji. They did not comply with the request. Gandhiji decided to break the salt law. By breaking salt law, Gandhiji started a new movement in order to convey a new message to the British government that in protest against their repressive policy, the Congress would start another movement. He started the civil disobedience movement. The civil disobedience movement started in the year 1930, my dear students, under the leadership of Gandhi. People of all sections, they participated in the civil disobedience movement. The civil disobedience movement, had become a great movement throughout the country. Almost all group of people, they participated the civil disobedience movement. In the northwest frontier provinces, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was there. He was a great follower of Gandhiji, who was popularly known as, Frontier Gandhi. He led that very group, Red Shirt Volunteers, which was also called Khudai Khidmat Guards or Servants of Gods. In the urban centers, Sarojini Naidu was there. She was also a great follower of Gandhiji. After having completed her graduation and master degree in MA in English, Sarojini Naidu joined Indian national movement. Gandhiji gave her an important role to convey the message to the urban people that the repressive policy of the British must be stopped with the policy of passive resistance. That's why they required to join the civil disobedience movement. Sarojini Naidu went to schools, colleges, universities, requested students and teachers to lay barefooted and to join the civil disobedience movement, not school students, but their parents. But the students of universities and colleges, they joined civil disobedience movement. The youth of India joined the civil disobedience movement in protest against the repressive measures of the British government. Over 90,000 people were imprisoned and many of them lost their lives. Why? Because of police firing. Many patriots of India were hanged and many others were deported. When the civil disobedience movement was on its climax, the British government decided to talk to Gandhiji regarding a conference which was likely to be held at London. The Congress was invited, but Gandhiji refused to participate in it. Why? Because of the reign of terror which was started by the British. The plan had been to discuss the Simon Commission's report, but Congress party did not participate in it. Meanwhile, Lord Irwin came to India as Viceroy and asked to break the deadlock with the Congress leaders. He was asked to talk to Gandhiji. When he came to India, Gandhiji remained in the jail along with his followers due to active resistance against the British government. When the civil disobedience movement started, almost all people of India, they got themselves involved directly, and the movement spread throughout the country, and the wave of civil disobedience movement, destroyed the administrative structure of the British government because of the non-cooperation of Indian people, non-cooperation of Indian mass, non-cooperation of Indian students, non-cooperation of Indian teachers, doctors, engineers, teachers. They all started non-cooperating with the British policy of depression. That's why Gandhiji was arrested, and many followers, many Congress workers also were arrested. But Gandhi was requested by Lord Irwin to join the second roundtable conference and to withdraw the civil disobedience movement, provided the British government would release him from jail. But Gandhiji did not want to be released. Why? Because of the British policy of depression. Unless the British would give up the policy of depression, unless the British would give the economic concessions to the Indians, unless the British would, release the confiscated properties of the Congress workers, Gandhiji decided not to join the second round table conference. On hearing the requests of Gandhiji, Irwin requested him to sit for an agreement. So Gandhi-Irwin Pact was held, and while signing the pact, it was decided that Congress workers' properties would be confiscated properties would be given back to them. Congress workers and many people would be freed from the jail, and the British policy of repression, which was the most important allegations against the British by the Indians, would be stopped. The British would stop the policy of repression. The British would stop a repressive policy. Gandhiji agreed to join the second round table conference and went to England to join the second round table conference. Up to this, my dear students, next day the remaining part. Thank you.